Hello and welcome to Viking Valley. I am Olafur Reidarsson. I'm the chieftain of the town that we have just been walking through, and you are now in my hall. We could have a look around, maybe today, maybe another day, to see some details of my life. But first of all, I want to welcome you to tell you that I'm not a Viking. I am a Norseman. And this is one of the things that people see wrong. They thought that everybody in our country were Vikings. And we know that Vikings were, I'd say, evildoers, people who came to other countries, to England, Ireland, France, all around Europe, and further out into the enlarged world. And they started by plundering monasteries, taking slaves, collecting silver, until they found out that, these countries are lacking things we have. So then we started trading instead of raiding. But one thing we still collected was slaves. Very useful. And one of them, you see, is sitting next to me here. He's not a slave anymore. He's grown to be one of my friends, and he's also a warrior, even though he still, as you can see, he's a monk. And thanks to him, I know how to read, and I can write. And an interesting fact is that when I went to school, because I'm not 1,000 years old, in my time, we go to school when we are kids. And when I went to school, my teacher told me that when Christianity came to Norway, we learned how to read and write. Sorry, we already had known that for 1,000 years, because we had a different kind of letters. They looked something like this. Oh, you need some light. And these were given us by a king in Scandinavia, who later, after he died, he became a god, and we call him Odin. Odin, he hung himself as a sacrifice, and as a price for his sacrifice, he was given the runes, the magic power of letters. He used them mostly for wizardry and magic. But later on, when the Vikings came, they changed a little bit of the runic alphabet, the futhark, and they started using them to write messages on stones, to mark their weapons, and write messages to each other. We have a rune stick in Bergen where it says, "Gyda says come home." I guess her husband's been out too long. And we had writing, but that came a few hundred years later, after the monks had come and taught us how to read and write. We also started writing, and we wrote books. And what we wrote was old poetry and our old history. And I used to gather people around me to read from these histories, these so-called sagas. And in some of the sagas, you have the most famous thing that the Vikings did, except for making ships and having beautiful clothes and silver and things like that. They wrote poetry. One of the most famous poets was a guy called Egil Skallagrimsson. I'll tell you about him in another story. But today I'd like to read to you something not actually written by Egil. We don't know who wrote this one because it was far before him. It was probably a couple of hundred years earlier. And mentioning this, I should also mention the lady who was very important to the Vikings. And she was called the Volva. And the Volva, she was like a seeress. She could look into the future. And if the Vikings wanted to go raiding or trading to England, to France, around the world, they would ask her, will this be a good journey? When should we go? Shall we wait till the summer? And where shall we go? And she would look into the runes, and she would find things to tell us about our journey. Maybe she'd say, wait, don't go this year. It won't be good for you. Wait another year. And this poem that I'm going to read to you was a conversation between the Volva and the god Odin. Because Odin was a bit worried. He could see into the future. He could see into the past. He actually was known to know everything. And one of the things he seemed to see in the future was a terrible battle. We call it Ragnarok. And he didn't see the end, which worried him. Why can I not see the end? Is that because I'm not part of it? Maybe that's true. Let me read this poem to you, and bear with me if there are things that, well, most of the things you probably won't understand. Most of the things will puzzle you. And that's another reason to have this monk next to me, because he knows a lot about the Vikings. He knows a lot about the gods, and you will see him in a later program. He can help me a little bit by interrupting when I'm reading, to ask or to tell what a few things mean. It will mention a lot of names for Odin, because he was a man of many names. Oh, sorry, I just have to have a sip of something modern. We modern Vikings call this Moroccan bean soup, because we know that the Vikings might have been in Morocco, North Africa, since they sailed through the Mediterranean Sea. And they might have found these beans, these black beans that smell strange but nice, and put them in their stew. They would taste horrible, but like this, like soup. We learned to like it. We call it coffee now. So let me put these modern tools on. Oh, hello. I can see better now. And I shall find something that we call the Volva's prophecy. Voluspo. Voluspo means actually the prophecy of the seeress. A hearing I ask of all holy offspring, the hire and lover of Heimdall's brood. Do you want me, corpse father? This is Odin. To tally up well ancient tales of folk from the first I recall. I recall those giants, born early on, who long ago brought me up. 9 worlds I recall, 9 wood-dwelling witches, the famed tree of fate down under the earth. It was early in ages when Ymir made his home. Ymir was a giant. There was neither sand or sea, nor cooling waves, no earth to be found, nor heaven above, or a gulf beguiling, nor grass anywhere. Before Bur's sons brought up the lands, that was Odin and his brothers Vili and Ve. They who molded famed Middle-earth. Sun shone from the south on the stones of the hall. Then the ground grew with the leek's green growth. Sun, moon, escort flung from the south, her right arm round heaven's rim. And so on, we could read and read. But I won't do that now, because I will do that later today with you. And through my reading, we might discuss a few things. But for now, I bid you a good day and see you later.